Today's episode is brought to you by the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Now listen, the current political and social climate, combined with the urgent challenges that our Black men and boys are facing, demand that we act boldly right now. 25% of Black children don't graduate high school on time. Compare that to the national average of 17%. Now, if we compound the issue even further, Black male graduation rate sits at 59%. Compare that to 65% for Latino males and 80% for white males, and you realize why CBMA is a beacon of hope. They're the only organization right now making themselves available to those leaders and organizations that are on the ground, working to advance the cause and reverse this narrative for Black men and boys. If you've not yet done so, I urge you today to visit tbpod.com/partners. Learn more about the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Consider joining their membership and investing in the future of our Black men and boys.
You're listening to the Trailblazers.fm podcast, where we'll explore the stories of today's successful Black professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Join us to access the knowledge, resources, and tools of these accomplished professionals and come away with the know-how, confidence, and motivation you'll need to blaze your trail. And now, here's your host, Stephen A. Hart.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Trailblazers.fm podcast. I'm your host, Stephen A. Hart. Our featured trailblazer for today is Simone Morris. Simone is the author of the book and also a podcast, both titled The Power of Owning Your Career. Simone helps readers and listeners to stay in the driver's seat for their careers, and her passion is empowering others to succeed through coaching and training. Before we dive into my conversation with Simone, I just wanted to share a couple items with you guys. I've been in Florida for the past couple weeks now. I've had the honor and blessing of being a speaker for the third year in a row at Podcast Movement. And I just have to say, if you're a podcaster or if you're considering becoming a podcaster and you're not actively investing in your own self-development, consider attending Podcast Movement. It was a fantastic event that allowed for me to learn all sorts of things from different events and talks, but also, and probably more importantly, gave me an opportunity to bump shoulders and network with some of the best people that are doing it right now. So give thought to Podcast Movement. I delivered an amazing talk at this year's event in Orlando on personal branding and marketing, and it was very well received. Just want to say thank you to Jared and Dan and the entire team over at Podcast Movement once again for having me. Following Podcast Movement, my family and I, my wife and kids joined me in Orlando to visit Walt Disney World. I actually worked for Disney in college for a couple years, so I know the parks really well, but it was the first time we took our kids and we spent a week on property with the kids and had a blast. We're all very tired and recovering slowly right now. But if you've not been to Disney, it's a really magical experience, both for kid and adult alike. As an entrepreneur, though, it's a pool of inspiration, right? To see the processes and systems in motion and just how they've engineered things over the years, where it continues to produce happiness and a positive experience and just continues to grow and evolve. But so much goodness in the last couple of weeks. Anyhow, enough about me. Please join me in sprinkling some of that Black girl magic in the air and helping me to welcome our featured guest for today, Miss Simone Morris. Simone, thank you so much for coming on.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Yes. So, we start all our conversations off from a place of gratitude. So I wanted to ask you, what unexpected blessing or opportunity are you grateful for in your life right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm grateful for my daughter, who is going to be 4 in about 2 weeks. And it's Mother's Day on Sunday. And I am just blessed with this little person who is already a leadership coach. Today, she said she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. And I just pinch myself that I get to be her mom. So I'm amazingly grateful to be a mother.
I love that. And happy Mother's Day as it approaches. I love the differences with kids. My daughter will be 9 in 2 weeks and our son will be 5 later in the summer. But boys and girls are so different, right?
Yeah.
You can talk about a girl, and the girls will tell you they want to be astronauts or, doctors or lawyers, and the boys just want to be superheroes, right?
Nice. Nice. She's heavily influenced by Doc McStuffins, so.
Yes. So, do you know that we had a doctor who is the inspiration for Doc McStuffins' mom on the podcast?
Oh, that's wonderful. We love
Yeah.
her. I know the episode number. Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So let me ask you, where did you grow up? What's your background?
So I do want to say that I am Jamaican, and that is one of my core identities.
Yes.
But I did grow up in the United States. So
where about?
When I was born in Kingston, and then my mom moved to the U.S., and then we came shortly after. So I came to the U.S. when I was in the 5th grade, and we moved to Connecticut. And I have been in Connecticut ever since. I feel like as a Jamaican, we kind of go someplace and then put roots and stay there. And so I've been in Connecticut ever since.
Listen, Connecticut has a strong Jamaican footprint, right?
Yes, indeed.
Only for Jamaican people in Connecticut, for sure. Big ups to Connecticut, Jamaican fam.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead.
You still get a chance to go back to Jamaica?
I do. Not often. I mean, my dad is still in Jamaica, and I am planning on taking my family because they've never been to Jamaica at some point. My goal is to speak in Jamaica. What a wonderful thing that would be.
Yeah.
And so I want to go down and, just re-engage. But
where in Jamaica is your family?
Americanized. So it's in the country and it's a whole different ball game, and roughing it and all that stuff. So my family is in an area, it's called Redwood. It's Jubilee Town, which is in St. Catherine, and it's close to a place called Redwood. That's what I can say.
Love it. Listen, you have to take your daughter home, right? And show her roots.
Absolutely.
I'm determined, to next year start really focusing on making sure I take the kids home in the summertime for at least a week and get it in their blood, get it in their system. Every time I turn on Nigel, our son, he'll sing Jamaican songs. I'll teach him a little patois here or there. Our daughter, not so much. She's just like, Dad, can you play this song when you're in the car by yourself?
Nice. You know what? Speaking of songs, I would say that I introduced my daughter to Jamaican very early on because in the delivery room, we played Bob Marley while she was born. So it was Don't Worry About a Thing. And just we all play it to her and remind her that she was born listening to Bob Marley. So.
That's right. That's right. Listen, so today you're in the career development world, right?
Absolutely.
And coaching and training. Talk to me about, is this something that growing up, you saw yourself as a coach? How did that come about?
No, well, I did want to be a teacher, right? Yeah. And so I told my mom I wanted to be a teacher, and she's like, no, there's no money in there. You don't want to do that. So I did not go down the teacher's route. I had all these different aspirations, and I talk about that in my book, my first book, Achievement Unlocked. So I started out with a dream to be a buyer, and I went to school. I have a marketing degree, and I also have a computer science degree. So the buyer road didn't really take off. So I completely went down the tech route for a very long time. Massive background in IT, being a developer, being a project manager, and just really stayed in that space for a very long time. And then I got into diversity and inclusion accidentally, and it changed my life. So I did a career pivot over to human resources, diversity and inclusion, and ended up leaving corporate America after about 2 decades, and realized that I needed to reinvent myself yet again after having my daughter in that space. It was a new world. And so I got into coaching through finding myself for my next chapter of what's next. And so that's how I pivoted over to coaching.
So I love this, right? There's sometimes, and I've shared with our listeners, how many different versions of Stephen A. Hart I've created. And my wife jokes and says, you're the only person I know that can recreate yourself every, 5 to 7 years. I'm a new version of. And, sometimes I think that we are fearful and doubtful about what's going to happen if we take that step forward, right? we're not altogether happy, or we plateau, and we were concerned about, if we were to step out, even though we're unhappy, even though we've plateaued, right? If we take the step to leave that job situation or to explore something different, that something really bad is going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And you talk about why it's important to be the driver in your career. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I love that because I think for a very long time, I had a hands-off approach to my career. And what that really means is that I was allowing other people to dictate what was best for me. I was listening to the other advice that I wasn't necessarily happy, as you talk about. So I would go into a meeting with my manager and he or she would ask me, what are my goals for the year? And I would say something and they would say, well, how does that align to the organization's objectives? Or you have to tweak this to better fit with the organization objectives. And I found myself tweaking, and more of me kept coming out of the equation as I tweaked to fit what would be accepted. And so after a while, I was just like, I am unhappy. I'm getting paid a lot of money. I have access to wonderful brands, access to events, all this stuff, but I just don't feel that that's my purpose. I don't feel fulfilled. And you are right when you say it's very scary to step away from, something, what you have been taught, to have a good job, to get paid, to have security, all that stuff, walk away and step out on faith into risk. And so I had to learn, and I had to do it by trial by fire, really learn on the job with these different experiences, that I had to find my path. I had to say, you know what? The driver's seat is mine. I claim it. I am responsible for my career. I am responsible for the outcomes, no one else. So what is it that Simone wants to do? And let me get in the driver's seat and start steering towards what I really want.
Simone, a couple of years ago, I created this acronym because I'm a personal brand strategist, right? And I help a lot of people develop their online digital brand and footprint. And a lot of times when I say I'm a brand strategist, people think I help them develop a logo and a website. And one of the things I helped people to look at the foundation was understanding who they're serving, who's your audience. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a career professional, you need to know who you're trying to serve. And then getting very clear about your mission and your vision and what your product is, meaning who you are and what you're bringing to the table, what you're offering, what's your unique edge. But you touched on something, because if you don't have clarity on your end destination, I always joke and say, where do you want to be and what do you want to have accomplished when you're sitting in a rocking chair 30 years out from now, right? If you don't have clarity on that vision or where you're trying to get to and what your mission is, what you really want to have, that impact that you want to have downhill, then you're going to feed into somebody else's mission and vision, as you touched on, and you're going to see less of you and more of somebody else's vision on your to-do and in your goals. And, it's really important that you have fun in this one life you're given and enjoy this time that we have on the earth, right? And I think that's so important. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about it, but listening to you right now, it's so important that even career professionals, corporate professionals, give thought to what's your mission and vision over the long term so that you're able to articulate, where you're trying to move. And if it's not with that employer, maybe you find a different, path and way forward that aligns with that mission and vision. But, if we're not in that driver's seat, as we touched on before, if not comfortable taking charge, what's your thoughts on getting somebody into that driver's seat and taking control?
I mean, my thoughts are really around empowering people to understand that they deserve to be in the driver's seat. I get people complaining to me about what's happening in their world professionally, and they're not happy.
Yeah.
And I want to impart to them and empower them to realize that, stop the blame of it's somebody else why I am not happy about my career, and to really be, I am in the driver's seat. What am I going to do about this? This is happening to me. Okay, maybe it's not fair. Maybe the company is changing all the time. They're downsizing. Whatever is happening. Your boss sucks. Whatever it is. It's not fair. Get it. What are you going to do about it? Okay, because you can change your situation. And so really teaching them the message of being responsible. And I have a project management background, so I really focus on teaching people how to plan. You got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you can plan to fail. You've got to have a clear plan on this is what I want to do. These are the players or the people that I need on my success team to help me get there. And this is my personal brand, like we were talking about. I didn't know for a very long time that I needed a personal brand. I was highly on the corporate brand, a brand advocate, a brand ambassador. Mm-hmm. And speaking that when people saw me, they saw the organization, and I had to find Simone's brand. Who is Simone? Who does she represent? And make sure that people know who my brand is and what to come to me for.
Right. And a great brand it is.
Thank you.
Very polished. Talk to me about the importance of networking, right? And maybe some tools we can use to become a little bit more savvy about our networking approach.
Absolutely. Listen, I was so bad at networking that it's not even funny. I was afraid of it. I really just thought that I could get ahead just by doing my job. And I learned that is not true. So I would say no to social opportunities. So if there was something going on the weekend, I was like, but I work during the week. Like, that's going to mean more time with people at work on the weekend. And so I was hesitant to do things like that. And I was one of those people who sat at my desk, did my work, bang it out. And, I worked for a liquor company and they had a bar upstairs. And I was like, I don't really drink that much. I don't want to go. But what I was realizing is that things were happening in that bar. So people who I saw at the water cooler and doing those things while I was working, I wasn't getting promoted. And I was like, what's happening here? Mm-hmm. And so I actually learned after corporate America about the importance of networking. And then the other thing was I was networking from my computer. So I would say to myself, I am a new mom. I don't want to be out at night. I can't go. So let me send an email and talk to people. And I really realized once I shifted and started putting myself out there and going to events and reaching out to people on LinkedIn and building strategic relationships, I started seeing a lot more results than me just doing the work and expecting the results to come to me. So I am an advocate for networking completely.
Love it. Love it. And let me tell you, I've talked recently on this, but I am going to make an argument that podcasting can be a new form of networking, right? For those of you out there, Simone, you just sharing with us that, you got through the first season of your podcast, but, the opportunity, especially in an interview style podcast, I have been able to leverage so many relationships, Simone, that the connections we make, right? This is our first real conversation one-on-one in this time here that we're talking right now. But by way of this conversation, I'm going to share your story, right? And in turn, you're going to share the conversation that we had. And it's this mutual benefit where I am exposing you to the network, to our community globally. And likewise, if you were to share this episode of your network, it's a new network of people being introduced to trailblazers.fm. So there's a benefit that goes both ways. But the beautiful thing is I publish an episode every week. And so every week I'm leveraging this new relationship that's been forged, right? And other things that come off of this, right? If I can benefit you in your platform and what you're doing in the coaching and training space, I can help to bring business your way and likewise continue to build the exposure to my own brand and platform. But I found podcasting to be this amazing tool that I've been able to leverage over the last 3 years to really build some really amazing relationships. So just want to leave that nugget with those listening.
I think you're absolutely right. And for me, I created the podcast because I wrote the book, The Power of Owning Your Career. Winning strategies and tips to get yourself into the driver's seat. And I did 14 interviews in that book. And what I loved most about that process was the interviews. So I said to myself, let me continue the learning. Let me continue to do interviews. And that's really what the podcast is, interviews. And you're absolutely right. I'm building these relationships. And I absolutely am going to share this episode everywhere. So don't worry about that. And we are connected now for sure. It's absolutely right. It's another networking tool.
And the learning, my gosh, you touched on that. I mean, I tell people every day, I feel like I have another degree or a couple degrees in the wisdom I've gained having these conversations and talking to people about their journey and, learning from their failures and their wisdom. Touching on that, let me ask you, no journey is a straight A to B, smooth without potholes, right? Talk to me about some of the sacrifices or maybe some of the challenges or failures you've experienced, navigating this journey from corporate to now kind of coaching and doing your own thing.
Sure. Let me say my first big failure is the most memorable failure of my entire career. And I learned the most from the biggest failure. Mm-hmm. So I deployed this big SAP project in Canada. And it's a financial system. And the project had to be shut down. And the psychology of shutting something down without delivering just was doing a number on me. And so I hesitated to shut the project down because I really felt like I was letting the project team down, letting the customer down, and that it was going to impact my brand. So I tried every different way, but it just was not working. And I was feeling not empowered to shut it down. And one of my senior stakeholders said, Simone, shut the project down. And I was like, I could do that. And it empowered me as a leader to be influential and to dictate the way and to stop waiting for people to give me permission to do something and to recommend something. So I really stepped up my game to say, okay, this is what we need to do. We're shutting the project down. This is the recommendation. And it actually benefited me in the long run because I was able to go back into Canada after being initiated and, all the bruises from that experience and deliver another project successfully in Canada. But I always remember that experience because I felt like so much of a failure that I just was that experience that did not leave me, but it's a lesson to trust yourself and to step up and make tough decisions and give the recommendation and stand on your platform, stand on your word and just, do what you need to do. So that has helped me being an entrepreneur. I found moving from corporate to entrepreneurhood that you have to learn to market your brand. You have to learn business development. And I'll tell you, that has been challenging for me because that mentality of doing the work and just getting the results. It's a lot more than that. It's the business development work. It's the networking, the key strategic relationships, plus still delivering quality. So juggling all those things, plus motherhood, can be challenging. So I have really leveraged organizations like the Women Business Enterprise National Council to keep me focused and to keep me to stay on the entrepreneur journey when I'm like, you know what, let me just go back to corporate because it would be so much easier.
Wow. I love that you're touching on a couple of things here I want to bring you back to. You talked about the input from others on your team and that wisdom and advice, and then also joining organizations that are there to help support you. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of having the right kind of partners. You know what? I've heard you term your success squad.
Absolutely. You just need to be clear on who is on your team. Who do you need to set you up for success and be intentional about it? Come up with an advisory board. Do I need someone who's better at marketing than I am? So maybe I have someone in my network that's a powerhouse brand strategist. And, maybe there's someone that's really good at business development. And I think you have to really be willing to invest in yourself. You have to be the biggest investor in your brand, not expecting other people to do it and to really risk on yourself to get results. So what I mean by that in terms of the success squad is I've done a mastermind group. Now I was complaining about the money for the mastermind group, but it really put me in the space of other successful leaders in the diversity and inclusion space. And the conversations that we were having in those meetings was really allowing me to elevate my game. Really to see business differently. For example, I remember the instructor, Shirley Davis, said 9 streams of income of revenue. And I was like, 9? Whoa, it just expanded my view. But that's a part of my success squad, a mastermind group, because that allows you to really be a better thought leader, pushing your thinking, challenging yourself, and doing a better job as a business leader. So I have a mastermind group. I have a friend. It's so important to have a friend, a business best friend. And I have one where we can talk business every day and challenge one another. I have an accountant. I have a lawyer. So I'm identifying different people that I need on my team to be successful. And I also look at organizations where I need access points. So I'm a certified women business enterprise. I'm a certified minority business enterprise. Those organizations are focused on giving you access to corporate leaders. So from a strategic standpoint, those relationships are important to building business. So I'm leveraging partnerships with those organizations to help me be a better small business owner.
Listen, there's so many gems right there. And I first off want to point this out. There are so many people who have recommended the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm going to encourage everyone listening, if you've not yet listened to or read Think and Grow Rich, you should. This is a book that's almost 100 years old, but timeless wisdom. And way back when Napoleon Hill was talking about mastermind groups, right? And you think of a mastermind group, you guys have heard me talk about this many times. It's a collective. And as Simone touched on, some of the best mastermind groups, I'm in 3. Some of them really do well when you have people with different strengths that are oftentimes your weaknesses, right? So you can, if you're a big vision, big idea thinker like me, having somebody who's a taskmaster who, can get into the details and get into the weeds and be like, Stephen, yes, you have this big vision, but what are you doing, right? To get through, and get Simone on your team who's, has that project management mentality and is going to get down to the nitty gritty and the details that need to get checked off in order to get done is so very important. And I would not have the success I've had over the last 3 years with this podcast or a branding course without having the accountability of that. I'm actually hopping off this call, Simone, to jump into a mastermind meeting in the midst of this day. So, it's so very important. And I don't know if you have anything else to share on the accountability piece.
I love accountability. I mentioned I have another book around goal setting and manifesting your goals, and I talk about accountability in that
Girl,
book.
you just have a book for everything.
I know. I'm getting there. I too.
I love it.
I'm really passionate about setting goals and about owning your career. So those 2 spaces and inclusive leadership, I play in those 3 spaces. So watch out for a book on inclusion coming.
I love it. I
love, Stephen, that you talked about Napoleon Hill, because I actually joined a mastermind group that was based around Think and Grow Rich. The National Speakers Association has a mastermind group, actually the Black NSA. They have a mastermind group that is based on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I benefited greatly from that mastermind group because you're pulling that book each week. You're focusing on a chapter and really pulling out the insights and, the affirmations and all the gems that's in that book. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
I will use that opportunity to also share Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, who was a past guest on the podcast recently, authored a different twist to that book, Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice. Also an amazing book. Both are also, I received them in a different way via audiobook than I did in print. Very powerful. I'm a podcaster, so I love the audio element, but highly encourage listening to the books. I'm listening to both books in audio. Very powerful as well.
There's a women's version too.
Is there?
Yeah. There's a women's version. So women out there know that there's a Think and Grow women's version that you can check out as well.
Love that. So listen, we're getting set to wrap up here, but you're talking about so many books. Could you kind of highlight, you've authored quite a bit. Talk to us about some of the books you've authored and any other books that you think we should be reading.
Okay, sure. So I've authored 2 books. The first one is Achievement Unlocked, Strategies to Set Goals and Manifest Them. I am a goal junkie. I am all about setting and achieving the goals and providing strategies for that. I even created a retreat called the My Life, My Way retreat, which is focused on goal setting and action planning and just powerful. So that's one book. The second book is The Power of Owning Your Career. I talk about my career journey, the obstacles that I had to overcome, and the mindset to get into the driver's seat and stay in the driver's seat. And I used a diversity and inclusion lens to be very intentionally inclusive in the book. So you have someone who is, a gay senior leader, a male and female, and you have someone who is Hispanic, you have a Black male, you have a Black female, you have a whatever it is. I'm very intentional about it. You have someone that's disabled. Those different perspectives come at you a different way from getting into the driver's seat. And I share their stories in the book. So it's very powerful. Now, in terms of other people's books, I am a big proponent of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. It is my all-time favorite book. It just really allowed me to step out on faith from corporate America because she says, you have to have the perspective that whatever happens, you can handle it. And I just continue to chant that to myself, you can handle it. So going through, separating from the organization, severance, all that stuff, I had to keep reminding myself, all right, you're going to be all right. You can handle it. And so I even have a tattoo. That's how strongly I believe in the book about that book on my wrist. So it's a powerhouse book and I love to learn. So I'm consistently pouring into myself, and believe it or not, one of my favorite podcasts is Joel Osteen. I don't know if you go into the religious space, but
absolutely,
it puts me into
I'm a Christian man, and I have nothing to hide there. So
yeah, it just it's a really lighthearted and inspiring, and some scripture in there, and keeps me energized and uplifted.
Love it.
There's a ton of books. I have a library at home, so I mean, those are just a few. But
Simone, I want to bring you back to something you just shared with me a second ago, and talking about your second book and taking that diversity and inclusion approach to it. And I thought, looking at that through that lens, what's your message to people who are looking at creating an opportunity for themselves going forward in their career journey when it doesn't feel like, they have a clear path, right? Because it could be, a Black gay man, right? Who is in a space, in an industry or in an occupation where there are none. And he's having to blaze a trail. Speak to, what's your recommendation to someone about, creating an opportunity for themselves in that kind of situation?
I love the question, and I don't mean to plug something else, but I did just write an article for Glassdoor in terms of leveraging diversity and inclusion as a competitive advantage for your career. So that would be perfect. I would say to leverage employee resource groups if they exist in your organization. If they don't, look for organizations like, in that case, you used a gay male. I would say there's an organization called Out and Equal, and there is the Human Rights Council as an organization. If you don't have access in your organizations, then go to some of those organizations, go to their meetings and start to benefit from the knowledge that they're sharing, start to network in that space. Something we didn't touch upon is sponsorship. I am huge on having a sponsor and not just a mentor, because
talk to me about the difference between the two. Yeah.
Okay. So, I think everybody knows what a mentor is, right? You can have a mentor to help you in your career, just to give you some advice and, guidance on your career, I would say, from a mentorship standpoint. But when you take it a step higher, you have a sponsor who is an advocate, a champion for you, someone who is speaking on your behalf when you are not in the room, someone who is creating opportunities for you, access points. So you want to be very strategic about finding a sponsor. And, it's a two-way street. So the sponsor should benefit from the relationship as well. And, it really is important to get someone on your team because you are not always in the room. And the sponsor usually has some dollars to help you accomplish some of your goals. So if you think about the New York City Marathon, they have a ton of sponsors. Your podcast has a sponsor that allows you to do more than you would be able to do on your own. So think about it from that lens for your career and find someone to be your sponsor. And by the way, don't just say, can you be my sponsor? Build a relationship and it will come as a result of the relationship.
Absolutely. And I love that nugget at the end there.
You be my sponsor.
Simone, you've been blessing us with gems. I appreciate you sharing this conversation with us. Tell us how we can stay connected to you and learn a bit more.
Absolutely. You can go to SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org or SimoneMorris.com. That's my speaker site, but the organization site is SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. I'm on the different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just Google my name and I'm out there.
Love it. Last question for you, and we'll wrap up for today. What's one action that our Blazer Nation should take this week that's going to help them to blaze their trail?
Oh my goodness. Say to yourself, my career is my responsibility. Affirm to yourself that you deserve to be in the driver's seat. Once you claim it and you affirm it, then you can take consistent action to make that a reality.
I love it. Simone, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have completely enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for having me as a guest.
I'm Steve Nehart, and you've been listening to the Trailblazers.fm podcast. If you're not yet doing so, consider following Trailblazers.fm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and feel free to connect with me over on LinkedIn. Whenever you're posting stories or social media posts about Trailblazers.fm, be sure to use the hashtag TBPod and hashtag Mission Fuel. We'll be able to see you, and I'll be able to show some love. And in case you're not aware, our show notes for all our episodes can be found on our website over at tbpod.com. Now, if today was your first time listening, I just want to say big ups, enough respect for checking us out. You've made this Jamaican guy really happy that you're here with us today. And I'd love your help with keeping this Black excellence flowing each and every week. So if you haven't yet subscribed, hop on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Search Trailblazers.fm and subscribe, rate, and review us there. Be sure to browse through some of our past episodes. There are more than 150 published episodes now, and a little something is out there for everyone to help keep the knowledge flowing. We grow when you, as part of our Blazer Nation community, shares and invites your friends and family to listen to an episode you think might impact them most. We believe that someone listening to these inspiring stories are going to be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Don't miss next week's episode. New episodes are released each and every Monday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern. Blazer Nation, go out today and find a way to rise above, go way beyond, and keep blazing your trail.